Well, YouTube just popped up and said, watch the zoning board.
Victoria, do you want to just kind of explain what we're doing?
Should I call to order?
Well, or that we're just waiting on one more member to arrive.
Okay, it's May 20th. I'm calling to order the Bloomington Zoning Board of Appeals, and we're waiting for one member to come before we proceed. I wonder if we could have Mr. Boyle explain the virtual meeting meanwhile. Is that possible? To change the order a little?
Sure, we could do that if you'd like.
Okay.
Well, while we're waiting for Mr. Rivera, I'd explain that this meeting of the City of Bloomington Board of Zoning Appeals is being held with remote participation by board members due to the public health emergency resulting from the COVID-19 pandemic. Pursuant to Section 6 of the Executive Order 2020-07, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. And in accordance with the temporary amendments to the Open Meetings Act, the city is providing public access to the meeting by electronic means for public participation. The public's been asked to register at least 15 minutes prior to the meeting in order to participate. We're using Zoom meetings for this remote meeting, and the public may view the meeting online at www.cityblm.org/live and on the City of Bloomington YouTube channel. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if desired, participate in the meeting by telephone if they've registered to do so 15 minutes in advance.
Thank you, Mr. Boyle.
It looks like Mr. Rivera is connecting.
We appreciate the board members' extra effort in doing this, and also the public's understanding and assistance and cooperation in making this meeting possible.
Could we ask Michael to check his audio just real quick?
Michael McFarland and Michael Strasser, would you check your audio?
Michael Rivera.
This is Michael Rivera.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, okay.
I think we can commence on the meeting.
Okay, well, I would like to take a roll call on the meeting, May 20th. Thank you.
Mr. Ballatini?
Present.
Mr. McFarland?
Here.
Mr. Straza?
Here.
Mr. Rivera?
Here.
Mr. Noonan?
Here.
And Chairperson Harris.
Here.
We have
Okay.
a quorum.
Okay, we have a quorum. So now, is there a submitted public comment or public comment present?
We did not receive any requests for public comment.
Okay, can we have a review or an approval of the meetings, of the past meeting agenda minutes? Any comments on the minutes from the past meeting? No, I had a couple comments that I made, but they were just typographical errors. So then we can go on to the regular agenda.
Do we want to, are we looking here for a motion to approve?
Oh, I'm sorry, George. Can we have a motion to approve the minutes of the past meeting, the last meeting?
I motion to approve the past meeting minutes.
I second it.
Okay, Mr. Shezza, thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't see who seconded. Was that Mr. Strauza?
Mr. Strauss.
And
Okay,
then
so
you want a voice vote?
We could
Yes.
do it, yeah, just yays and nays. Voice vote
A voice vote. All those in favor?
as opposed to a roll call.
yay.
Yay.
Okay. The motion carries.
Those opposed?
Mm.
Any opposed?
No
no.
nays.
None.
Okay, so we can proceed to the regular agenda. We have consideration, agenda item 1 is SP 0220. Can we have a statement from the petitioner?
This is Tyler Harry from Eastview. Can you guys hear me okay?
I can.
Yes.
Okay. I'm a little new to this, Victoria, so I assume I'm the petitioner. Is this the chance to say a few things?
You are, we're all new to this. But thank you, Tyler.
Say that again, I'm
Do we
sorry.
need to recuse ourselves first? Or do I need to recuse
Yes,
myself?
I think that that's accurate. If I could, just a word of explanation, and this is George Boyle. My understanding is that there are 2 members who will be recusing themselves from this item and the next one. And perhaps if they'd each just make a brief statement as to why they're recusing themselves, we can then start to begin the testimony with swearing in the first witness for the public hearing. Mr.
George?
Valentini?
I'm
Yes?
sorry, George. When these people are recused, do you want us to have them turn off their video, or does that matter?
You know, the way the rule generally is is that they leave the room. So I think it's a matter that they just don't that they don't participate in any fashion. If there is someone where they're going to be participating as a witness, obviously they wouldn't be leaving the room. They mostly would be leaving the dais in a sense. So I guess my point is simply that they don't speak during the presentation unless they are. My understanding, there may be one of them speaking as a witness.
Okay.
Great, thank you. Okay, Tyler,
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, guys, for allowing me to join your guys' call. And
I'm sorry, and I don't mean to interrupt, excuse me. So can we have each member that is going to be recusing themselves state their name and a brief reason for their recusal? I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Harry.
Okay, so my name's Terry Ballantini, board member. I need to recuse myself because I live adjacent to the property, and I will be speaking here shortly as a witness.
Michael McFarland, I need to recuse myself because I'm a member of the church.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Harris, will you swear the witness?
okay, Tyler, would you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to the best of your ability?
yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Could you state your application?
Sure. My name's Tyler Harry, and I'm the executive pastor at Eastview Christian Church. I confess, I don't know. I don't want to go too long and waste your guys' time, but I also want to provide a little bit of context for the project today. But I was born and raised in Bloomington Normal. I'm 38 years old and have spent my entire life here, and so love this community. And so thank you for having me. I'd like to explain very quickly, Victoria, I promise I'll be brief, the original vision for why Eastview procured the property on Union Street. We never had an interest or a strategy or even a vision of having multiple campuses in Bloomington Normal. About 3 years ago, we had a passion to explore opportunities to launch a community center to invest more of our resources into the community. As we prayed over that for about 2 years, towards the end of that time, Shelley Bauer, who was the pastor of Crosswinds Church, who owned that property before us, approached Eastview in January of 2018. The size of the facility and the resources required to keep it up to date was becoming a strain. And so Shelley knew we had a passion to launch a community center, invest more in the community. There was currently a community center in the Crosswinds building. And so Crosswinds reached out to Eastview to talk about shared vision and values for the community. And so that's how the conversation started. And we purchased that property in May of 2018, and kind of the rest is history. But so there is a church on that property, but that was kind of the second thought. The initial driving conviction for Eastview was the idea of maintaining that community center. But in regards to the project scope, I know you guys have seen the detail that Farnsworth has submitted. As you know, the house on 1301 North Lee, the blue house, was taken down. And so it was uninhabited on the corner of our property. And really the heart for the project is we'd like to expand the parking lot, but not the building. And so the parking lot expansion is really filling in a current space that we already own. It's not actually increasing the footprint of the building or necessarily the property. And the goal is to provide additional parking and traffic flow for the property and really get a lot of cars off the street and be able to serve a lot more people in a more efficient and organized manner. The current community center, the goal for the community center when we can kind of congregate is we want to put more resources into that property than we ever have. Specifically the community center. We've already hired several staff with the goal of helping to expand programming to meet needs in the neighborhood and the community. And a lot of our work there is strongly influenced by a work titled When Helping Hurts. The idea being sometimes when you're doing relief work and you're handing things out without helping to rehabilitate and provide development opportunities for people, you're harming people more than you're helping. And so we strongly believe in some of what that book lays out. There's key distinctions between relief, rehabilitation, and development as the long-term component of really helping somebody grow and develop into who we think God wants them to be successful and happy in life. So our desire in the fall is to launch more programming towards that development component. Our current programming, I think, as the board probably is aware, includes an after-school program that works with 38 children and 28 families. The Jewel Foundation, which mentors junior high and senior high students, is out of that building. Our food pantry ministers to about 80 to 100 families a week and have had counseling services there. We partner with Bent School for kids at risk, food insecure homes over the weekend to provide backpacks of food. And then over the summer, we've been doing something called community nights where we've had 500 unique visitors from the neighborhood come out for grilling and conversation, bounce houses, things like that. Obviously, a lot of this has been interrupted with COVID, as all of us are, as I'm watching you guys on a Zoom call. I know that's not your normal rhythm, and so we've all been impacted. But really, one of my greatest joys in the midst of COVID has been seeing the Bloomington campus become the epicenter for Eastview's outreach to the community. We have distributed over 1,800 food boxes to families and delivered 3,200 meals to frontline workers. And we're trying to help 160 different families financially, whether they need help with childcare or eviction and bills. But each of those people is a real person and a family that we've gotten to know. And so we're just very excited to lean into this more. So in closing, you know, the reason we feel passionately about this project, Victoria and Zoning Board, is because we just want to be good neighbors. And we see this as a long-term investment. I know there were some in the community that maybe were surprised when Eastview purchased the property and moved from the Northeast hub into the heart of the community there. But we want to be good neighbors, and here are the ways we think this project helps us be better neighbors. Number one, it helps us get cars off the streets to honor people's spaces and places, not just on Sundays, but when we're doing our Wednesday food distribution and our other programming. We think it adds landscaping and lighting to improve the aesthetics and the safety of that area. We'd like to add some basketball hoops and make it a place where teenagers or younger kids can come and play on that expanded parking lot. And finally, it kind of allows us to serve more people in a safe and efficient manner. And not just during Sunday services for our congregation, but throughout the week with the community center programming. So we're just excited to continue to try to increase our presence in the neighborhood without necessarily trying to increase our footprint and dominate that landscape. So thank you for allowing me to share a little bit.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments from the staff? No. So we have some statements of people who want to speak to this project. I think there are 6 people who have submitted.
We do. We have 6 people who've registered in advance to speak in favor of the petition. Would you like me to introduce them into the meeting one at a
Please.
time? Okay. First is Barry Riley.
Good afternoon, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of Eastview's request. As the superintendent of Bloomington Public Schools, I have seen firsthand the partnership of what Eastview has been able to do, and it started long before they inhabited this building, but continued. Tyler mentioned the kids that are being served along with the families. In addition to that, as the COVID outbreak has happened, they have simply expanded that to provide services to more families and students. We've reached out to the community and asked for donations. They have stepped up and provided paper products. They provided hygiene products in addition to food in numbers greater than anyone else has in the community. So we greatly appreciate their support. I would like nothing more than for them to be able to expand those opportunities. So I'm speaking in support of what they're asking you tonight.
I'm sorry,
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Riley. We forgot to swear you in. So do you swear that the testimony you gave was the truth?
I absolutely do. Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Riley. Okay, we haven't, any questions of any? Okay, our next witness.
Next is David Taylor. Mr. Taylor, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Can you hear me okay? Is it okay to go?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure. I'm David Taylor. I'm the president and CEO of the United Way of McLean County here locally. And I've been asked to speak in favor of this project too on behalf of Eastview. Over the last several months with the impacts that we've seen from COVID-19 and some of the widespread disruptions and really impacts for people in the community, Eastview's campus and their infrastructure on that near west side of Bloomington has been very critical in helping to support those organizations and others that are getting that food that we're helping to support out into the community. We've seen firsthand through some of our partnerships with the Jewel Foundation and others, the kind of mentoring and anchor that they're creating in that space and in that neighborhood and community. And we're very supportive of, and I'm very supportive of the project and the expansion there to continue to help them meet those needs and to continue to be a partner like they have been with United Way, with District 87, and with others.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Taylor or comments? Thank you. Ms. Simpson, would you call the third witness?
Next is Kevin Butler. Mr. Butler, do you swear the testimony you're about to provide is the truth?
Mr. Butler, can you hear us? Can we move on to the fourth witness and go back?
Yes. Mr. Zimmerman?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I'm here. Kevin Butler.
Okay, thank you. Mr.
Please
Butler, will you
forgive me.
swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony?
Yes, I am. Will.
Thank you.
I am Kevin Butler. I'm the building director of Eastview Christian Church. I am in support of this, and I'm here really as hopefully to answer any questions that might come up. But we put a lot of work into the design of the parking to enhance the aesthetics of the area, and I'm confident that it will be an enhancement and the neighborhood will be improved by this. That's complete.
I
Thank you.
have a question. Do you foresee a lot more traffic that will require more parking spaces?
Well, we're always hoping to have more traffic, and we're being proactive for more traffic coming in. But the main goal currently in this time period is to help the neighborhood by getting a lot of cars off the street, because from going for crosswinds from a congregation of about 60 at best, we have a lot of members that come there, and to help the neighborhood, it's better to get all those cars off the street, as we've seen over the last year and a half or so, that sometimes we tend to be our members, not our people that attend. Sometimes they park just a little off, but for that, to get people off the street and to also improve the parking for our community nights, where people can have more space to meet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions? Okay, can we go to Mr. Zimmerman?
Yes, and also Chairperson Harris, it looks like the petitioners raised their hand. So I don't know if the petitioner is raising their hand. I'm assuming they want to add something to the testimony. So just so you're aware, if you would like to take that after we hear all the positives, or if you want me to allow them to speak now.
I would like him to speak now.
Katie, can you hear me? This is
Yes.
Tyler. I didn't mean to put Kevin, our building service director, on the spot, or Mark Zimmerman's our pastor of finance. They called into the meeting to listen and answer any questions. I wasn't planning on having them give a testimony, so I just raised I didn't know how to add them as listeners, and I think we pegged them as people who are giving testimony, so I apologize.
Okay, it went smoothly.
Mr. Harry, we also have Michael Jones and Tara Ingram registered to speak. Are they providing testimony or here to answer questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then I will let Michael Jones into the meeting. Mr. Jones, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
I do. Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Are you ready?
Yes, we are. Could you state your name?
Yes. So I'm Michael Jones. I grew up on the west side, just really northwest of the Roosevelt and Union Street Church that used to be Crosswinds. I am currently the board president for Western Avenue Community Center. We've served the community for well over 94 years. And as Tyler mentioned, in May of 2018, when they made the commitment to come to the west side, Western Avenue has partnered with them since that time. I have personally witnessed the investment that they've made inside the facility, and now that they're wanting to make another investment on the outside for all the reasons that you've heard from the other witnesses. I think it's a plus for the neighborhood to help get some of the traffic off the streets and provide some of the outside amenities that were talked about with basketball and just a more of an open area where people can pass through. Through this COVID-19, we have continued to partner with Eastview out of Western Avenue. We've passed out well over 5,000 meals over the last several weeks actually 7 weeks. And Eastview has been a partner with us, as we've also provided well over 300 bags of or boxes of groceries as well. So I do support this initiative that they have.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Does anybody have questions or comments? Okay, thank you. I believe, Katie, do we have one more person?
We do. Tara Ingram. Ms. Ingram, do you swear the truth, the testimony you're about to provide is the truth?
I do. Thank you. My name is Tara Ingham, and I'm the Executive Director at Midwest Food Bank here in Normal. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak today. At Midwest Food Bank, we gather food, we provide it to food pantries, and Eastview is one of the pantries that we support. In fact, Eastview operates one of the largest food pantries in McLean County that we support, making a significant impact throughout our community, serving over 1,500 people a month with the food and the resources that they need to survive. That's 1,500 people representing countless additional family members and children. So in addition to the help that Eastview has provided to the Feeding Bloomington Normal and Beyond endeavor, that recent endeavor that David Taylor spoke about earlier, Eastview has recently helped us locate and pay for an entire load of toilet paper to provide to multiple pantries throughout the city. This was no small feat during this toilet paper scarce time. Their care for the community has continued when they helped us to procure and to bag raw chickens from Georgia to feed to the hungry right here in town. So anything that can be done to help increase the impact that ECU is able to make and it is an exponential gift to our community. From my experience, ECU is all in, serving and loving this community in real and tangible ways. So I urge the zoning board to consider this impact when allowing ECU to proceed with their products needed at their facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ingram. Does anybody have any questions or comments to Ms. Ingram? Okay, thank you. I think there was one more comment against this. Speaking of,
oh, sorry, Victoria, that is all the people who've registered to speak in favor of it. We do have a staff report, and then there's one person who would like to provide testimony or ask questions against the petition.
okay, then we can proceed to the staff report first. Okay, thank you.
Okay, can you see my report, the presentation?
I can, thank you, Ms. Weeks.
Okay, so this is for the project. The petitioner is seeking a special use to allow for the expansion on existing place of worship in the R1C district and a variance for decrease in the number of required parking spaces for the property located at 401 Union Street. We'll first address the special use SP 220 at 401 West Union Street for the expansion of a place to worship in the R1C district. Okay. The general purpose and intent of the special use is to promote the comprehensive plan, to protect from incompatible and detrimental land uses, and promote the health, safety, welfare, and protect cultural resources and the environment.
Okay.
The board considers the visual impacts, property values, neighborhood character and integrity, and the public and private interests and the due process. The petition meets all the standards for a special use permit, and the staff recommends the expansion for a place to worship to allow the special use.
Thank you, Ms.
This is a photo of the church at 401 West Union on the left, and on the right is the lot to the west of the church. There is currently a portion of that lot that serves as the parking lot for the church. One residence was demolished to provide for additional parking there, which is not shown. So this is an overview of the area. You have the church at 401 West Union, And the area that is outlined for phase 1 will be remodeled for the parking lot. And phase 2 of the area is a current residence. There is an alley running north of the property that runs east-west. So this is a zoning map of the area. The yellow is the R1C single family residence district, and the orange is the R2 mixed residence district. The proposed land use in the comprehensive plan is for a low density residential. The purpose and intent of the R1C residence district is to provide primarily for the establishment of areas of higher density single-family detached dwelling units, while recognizing the potential compatibility of two-family dwelling units and special uses. A place of worship is allowed with a special use permit. This shows a site plan with the project. I think it's a little hard to see, but there's a photo along North Lee. The photo that's shown is along North Lee, showing the area that's proposed for phase 1 to be developed into the parking lot.
Okay.
The residence that you see in the north of that lot is a portion of the phase 2 parking area. These are photos showing the alley on the north side of the property and the residence that's in the phase 2 for parking. This shows residences. The one on the left is along West Union Street, and the one on the right is along North Lee Street on the western boundary across from the parking lot. Some examples of similar uses include the Trinity Lutheran Church at 801 South Madison Street. It is shown in the left map in green, and it is surrounded by R2 and R1C residential zoning that is shown in the yellow and the orange. The map on the right shows Bent Elementary School at 904 North Roosevelt Avenue, which is directly south of the subject property. And 2 parking lots are shown that are highlighted to the right of the green area that denotes the school. The lots are shown in pink east of the Bent School within R2 residential districts. This is the comprehensive plan. The area circled shows the area that's identified as low density residential. The standard and analysis, that the proposed use for a place of worship in addition to religious services will offer childcare, preschool, and a food pantry for surrounding residents. The use will be contained within the block and will not spill over beyond the natural borders of Lee Street and North Roosevelt Street. The standard that the use will not be injurious to the use of other properties surrounding it. The proposed use is categorized as institutional, which is similar to the Bent Elementary School, located 3 blocks to the south and has 38 off-street parking spaces. The majority of the maximum parking needs will only occur once a week at the church. Additionally, the project proposed adding parking that increases the usability and life of the historic building at 401 Union Street, helping to maintain neighborhood character and vitality. This expansion of the use shall not impair property values of nearby residences. The special use shall not impede normal development of nearby residences. It is infill. Utilities will not be needed for this development since streets and other utilities are already provided. The lot has 2 existing ingress and egress access, one from West Union Street and the second from North Lee Street. No new exit or entrance is proposed to the parking area. The building exists and the proposed use encourages the adapted use of the building at 401 Union Street, preserving the character of the low-density residential area and preventing further demolition of single-family homes while allowing the continued use of the church building as a priority. The staff recommendation is to allow for the special use permit.
Okay, are there any questions or comments about the staff report? Hearing none, I call for a vote to approve the staff report.
Sorry, Ms. Harris, I think we still have somebody who wants to ask questions or speak against.
Oh, okay, thank you. Who would that?
Mr. Ballantini, do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth?
Yes, I do. Thank you for allowing me to speak. It's not that I'm against this issue. In fact, I'm in favor of the issue, but I have some questions and concerns that I want to be able to ask, and I want the zoning board members to consider as well. My property is adjacent to this property. I don't know if you can put on the map at any given time, Katie, the overview photo. On the packet, it was like figure 1, but I don't know if you have an overview of the property to kind of show where I live. But on the north side of the building, there's an alleyway that goes east and west. My property is adjacent to that alley. There we go. If you take a look at the white part of that building, and then there's like a little gray building just north. Yes. That is my garage. Okay. And if you can look, you can see my little red car there. Yes. It has a spot for 2 parking spaces. That is my, that's where we park our vehicles. We park them in the garage, we park them in that spot. We have to go down that alleyway to get to that location. Again, I'm all in favor of the church taking over the property. It's been a blessing. It's been nice. I've lived there roughly for 4 years now. In fact, our house is born in 1896, which predates the church even. But we've lived there for 4 years, and I recognize the fact that the value that Eastview brings to this property. But my concern and what I've had to deal with over the last many months is parking. It's parking and access to my spot back there where we park. And it just kind of goes to the question to Tyler or Kevin or whomever that can help me with this. How you guys are doing the pantry. You offload into a section on that alleyway, on a doorway that you created when you bought the building. It wasn't there before for the many years that this building had been there. You guys did that so that way you could have access to that food pantry, which is awesome. You do a delivery. The problem I've got is that you deliver to the folks that require the pantry items. You use this as a drive-through, and there are numerous cars up and down this alley, parking in our actual parking spot, parking behind our cars where we can't pull out. And it makes life very challenging and very difficult. I've had a heart attack. My father-in-law's had major heart surgery in the past. My mother's in the hospital in Indianapolis with a stroke currently. When I have to leave at times, I have to go and find somebody in the church physically to move their car or to get them to move that vehicle so I can leave, whether it's in a hurry or leave to go to work. Typically, it's kind of been reduced recently to Wednesdays only, but still early and late when I get back home, sometimes there's roughly 20 people in the alleyway blocking the access to our parking space. If your design with this new parking structure and taking down the building in phase 2 encompasses the egress and ingress through the pantry entirely on your parking space, answers my question completely and fully. If you're not going to use the alleyway, that's great. In your designs, you have a wall or you have a fence going down the phase 2 line and connecting that property to your existing building. If you did that, you're taking that ability of using your little alleyway that goes north and south between your parking lot and your structure of your church, where they come up and turn right and go into the alley and block, my parking. If you're going to use your entry and exit from Lee Street and I forget what the other one is, Union. If that's your ingress and egress for your food pantry and you're not going to be using the alleyway for the food pantry or deliveries, or quite frankly, individuals to park there that work for the church, I'm happy. I'm pleased. In fact, before I guess I get answers, Katie, do you have those pictures I sent that are available?
Sorry. Yes.
I just wanted to kind of show you guys kind of what I deal with. I mean, again, I'm all for helping. I've gone on mission trips to Africa and Poland. I had a non-for-profit for orphanages. I get it. It's a great thing that you guys are doing this. I just need assistance. You made a comment that you wanted to be a good neighbor. I'm the one that's impacted the most for what you're doing in this alleyway. All I'm asking for an exception. So you can see from this view, a car's pulled up, to get food from the pantry. If you can go on to the next photos. That's compilation, B, C, D, and F. D is just your alleyway, which is really nothing, but B, again, car physically behind, my garage, my parking space, another car behind our 2 cars. And then you see the alleyway, the actual alleyway on section F. I don't know, was that it on the pictures, Katie? Yeah, just one more. A drop off. Yeah, just drop offs and behind there. So, and this one was taken, I think, 2 weeks ago. Go back to that one, Katie. Where you had the worker standing there. Nope, that one. That was 2 weekends. That was 2 Wednesdays ago. And just you got a lot of folks. You had, I think 15-ish people just standing right there behind our place, which made it a little bit difficult for us. So all I'm asking for is, it's not even has to be an exception or a stipulation by any means, just clarification more than anything, that you guys are going to make sure that this is held on your property and not in the alley. And that would be it.
Yeah, Terry, this is Tyler Harry. I'm just taking my cues. When I get unmuted, it might be a chance for me to speak. First of all, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I want to apologize, Terry. I know that probably seems a little late, and I understand that. Kevin and I wanted to reach out to you prior to the hearing, but we felt like it would come across maybe disingenuous in light of the hearing coming up. So you're right. If you hadn't mentioned the part about being a good neighbor, I was going to. We certainly don't want to talk about trying to be good neighbors to the masses and have a bad relationship or inconvenience our literal local neighbors. And so you have my commitment, you have Kevin's commitment that we'll do whatever it takes to fix this and to keep it fixed. My role, I oversee all of our outreach departments in addition to our operations departments. And so the local outreach team reports up to me. And so we can certainly put together some different processes and procedures to be a better neighbor. At this point, the reason we put in that double door on that wall was just to be able to unload product and then to get it into the food pantry easier than up the steps in the other entrance. So I have no problem sitting down with you, Terry, and trying to talk through issues and make sure that we're being a better neighbor to you. You have my word on that.
So is it your design to stop using the alleyway for these drive-bys and to have that on your parking lot?
Well, I don't want to get myself in trouble by speaking about something I think I'm aware of, but I don't. So there's a lot of details that I'm not involved in. But my understanding, Terry, is on a typical food pantry day, we've kind of before COVID, we invited our participants to come into the building and receive time where you kind of registered them. We prayed with them. We talked with them about other needs in their life, and then they're able to shop in the pantry. And so the drive-through right now is Wednesdays, I believe, 3 different shifts just due to COVID, where we're trying to reduce the head count in the building. Is that what you're referring to?
That's the majority of it, yes.
Yeah. So after COVID, when we get back to whatever our new normal looks like, our guests will then park in this larger lot and be able to come into the building to procure their food, and then wouldn't necessarily need to use the alley. So on Sundays, we manage the traffic flow with cones and signs. And so we can certainly talk about what type of signage might need to be in that alley to reduce these nuisances for you. And some of the photos, those are our volunteers. That's much easier to control because they're obviously a part of the church volunteering. They want to be a good neighbor, so we can work on that.
So it's not the only time that it's two instances, or 2 type of instances. One, on occasion where we've had individuals that do go into, I mean, I've had people park in our actual parking spot, which it's not even in the alley. And then other people that are parking in the alley adjacent to your building, slightly off the alley, but still it's not for parking. And they park there to go inside. And we used to have people that park there all day long. It would make it difficult to get out of our parking spots without having to come in, hunt somebody down and ask them to move their vehicle so I can move my vehicle. So it is, doing a long-term, whether it's an hour, 2 hours, whatever, parking in the alleyway, which is really not supposed to be happening. But that's one issue. The other main issue is it is the food pantry. It's these deliveries on Wednesdays that we come home and we have to wait to get into our parking spot. I shouldn't have to wait to get in my parking spot when you have a full parking lot that you could more or less, because they're doing a drive-through, and they're usually, what I understand and see, Tyler, they're bringing these out in a shopping cart for the most part. They load up, like you said, they go in and shop, figure out what they want, and then they put it in the shopping cart and they push the shopping cart through your building and out into the alleyway while they park in the alleyway and fill it up. I don't know why that couldn't be done entirely in your parking lot and not the alley. That would help me. And it would help me, especially when I have emergencies and I have to go run and go to the hospital.
Yeah, Terry, I think those are reasonable things that we can look at. Kevin and I had even talked about, we didn't want to presume anything about your property, but in addition to the measures that we can take, Eastview would be willing to pay for signage if you would like that or feel it's appropriate, not tacky, that said something to the effect of private parking or no parking here, et cetera. So I think we're really open to talking through a lot of that. I think Kevin might be able to speak a little bit into this if we unmute him, just because he's over at the Bloomington property a lot and has witnessed some of that as well.
Yes, I can. Terry, it's Kevin Butler, the building director. Our drive-through that happens through that alley, which we can easily cease and desist right now, it's on during days of inclement weather with our new process that we're only doing right now because of the virus. Otherwise, as Tyler spoke to earlier, the people that come to the food pantry park actually in our parking lot, and then they come in. And then, so that on normal days, that's not a problem, but we have been using the alley that's adjacent to your parking more and more lately because of inclement weather on Wednesdays. We try our best to maintain it into our current parking lot. They come in on Union Street and exit on Lee. You see, like today, even this evening, you'll see a tent in the middle of our parking lot where people come up and just grab and go.
Kevin, I can tell you that the pictures that I submitted or that you saw was well before the COVID as well. So it's not just since this has happened in April. This has happened for the last, X amount of months since you started this process. And so I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. that,
Yes, we are. I'm sorry. I was just getting ready to say that on some occasions they've had people that for whatever reason need to stay in their car, so they have them pull up and drive through that alley even when it's not inclement weather. But with our new design, the plan is that we'll have handicap access that people can come up actually onto the sidewalk. And our phase 2 plan could even accommodate our deliveries. Our deliveries are a little different because those happen generally on Tuesdays. And we really don't have a good way to get the food into the food pantry. That's why we put those doors there. But that generally only lasts a few 20, 30 minutes on deliveries. But these are all easily things that we can resolve right now. And we've got the word out, believe me. We've got to stop letting any unneeded traffic in that alley. And like Tyler mentioned earlier, some things take signage, so we're willing to put up signage, even if you'll agree, we can put it on your fence right behind us to say that it's resident parking only. And we're willing to do that, of course, easily tomorrow, if that will help the cause.
it's well appreciated. I just want to make sure that, that the board members of the zoning, consider this as an exception or a stipulation that, there's no blockage of, I'm not the only one. There's a house to my west of us that has a parking space back there. They don't utilize it because I think they only have one car. And I do think they park up front. I've never really had a problem with you guys on service days because we get people that park in front of our house and it's fine. They're in there for the service and they leave. We're all friendly and nice and we get to see people all dressed up. And it's really, it's really nice to see, the folks that are going there. Because again, when we moved in, the church wasn't being utilized whatsoever. I just want, besides an occasional weekly delivery of, goods to the pantry, I'm imploring that your drive-through is on your property and not in the alley.
This is George Boyle speaking here. Now, I'm looking at the staff report, and there is in here a provision that's from our ordinances that says that the ordinance requires that parking for non-residential uses located in a residential district be located on the same parcel as the use. So perhaps this is already addressed in the ordinance, and I think maybe I don't want to put words in the applicant's mouth, but I think that they're agreeing to that, and perhaps I'm misstating things. But I would say, Mr. Valentini, if you're asking for an addition of a particular condition, that you specify what it is. So either way, I don't know if I just wanted to point out that our ordinance to some degree does address this.
George, this is Katie, and I just want to kind of clarify that the reason the special use is necessary is because right now we require all parking for non-residential uses to be located on the same property as the non-residential use. So they're currently on separate properties. The objective is to expand the parking area, which is considered an expansion of the special use. And because the parking is serving the church, it would be located on the same property. So just to kind of clarify, the phased project involves vacating the alley, the north-south alley, and which will be approved, or which will be considered and acted on by City Council in May, on May 26th at the regular council meeting right now.
Monday, yeah.
Monday. That is a separate process and separate from this, but it's part of the project, and so the special use would really allow for, if that is approved by council, it would allow for the church to expand their parking lot and then consolidate their existing building lot and the 3 residential lots on the west side of the property into one larger parcel, keeping the circulation on their own property. So just a point of clarification, and you're right about the ordinance, what that says.
Because I might just make sure that I'm on the same path as well. Once you vacate the north-south alley between the parking lot and the building, you're cutting off your access to the alleyway that goes east-west, that is a public alleyway. And thus, if you're going to put a fence and border on where the phase 2 house is, then it's going to be, if you lined up cars to do a drive-through as you currently are doing, Kevin and Tyler, it's going to be a complete mess and a complete problem. And that's why I'm encouraging to make sure that everything's contained within your property. That would be helpful, you know, to us and our property.
Casey, can you please pull up the site plan again, just for a point of reference? So, Chairperson Harris, it sounds like we've received Mr. Ballantini's testimony and our witness has rebutted. Our petitioner has rebutted. I don't know if they have anything else to add or not. Staff is available if there's any questions from the board as well.
Are there any more questions? I would like to ask Mr. Ballantini if he would like to write a stipulation that everything will be done on the parking lot and not in his driveway.
May I say something? Am I unmuted or muted right now?
You're not muted.
Okay, I just had a quick question. This is Tyler again. So does there need to be a separate stipulation written into this? We want to be a good neighbor to Terry, and Kevin and I are willing to meet and do whatever we need to do. And so we don't want to clog up that public alleyway, and we certainly don't want to be on his personal property. I think the primary issue, Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not that we've been on your personal property, although you did allude to some Yahoo parked there before. So, but it's primarily clogging up the public alleyway. Is that correct?
You're muted, Terry.
Yeah, I got it. It's been both. It's been
okay. Both. Okay. I just didn't know if we had to have outside stipulations related to the public alley use, but I'm certainly out of my league here, guys, and defer to you guys.
Tyler, the reason why I'm asking for a stipulation or an exception in this one is because, quite frankly, I'm hearing two things. You're being very great and very generous and saying, we'll sit down and talk. And Kevin is saying, yeah, we can definitely do that. I don't want to, this is something that's somewhat simple, you know, I would assume.
Well, this is George Boyle. It is possible with considering a special use, because it does have to do with the effect of the use on the neighborhood. The conditions can be added to the recommendation. So if you're requesting that specific condition, and I mean, if you are doing that, then that can be something that the board can either consider adding to its recommendation or not. And that would be something that we could move on from. If you don't want to ask for that, that's fine. If you do want to ask for it, fine. And if you could just specify it specifically what you're requesting as a condition, then we can see if the board wants to request it or if that wants to be something that the applicant agrees to.
So, George, what I would ask is that there is a stipulation that any activity is on their property as stated earlier in the presentation and not in the alleyway.
Okay, so the stipulation, the condition that you would like added is that all activity is on their property, not in the alleyway, period. That's the only, okay. I don't know what the order would be, but can I ask the board if they would like to add that condition?
Am I muted?
This is George Boyle. I want to say one thing about that particular thing. If you are, when they're part of this is that there's only a certain amount that the specific business may be able to control. This would be something to consider. So, for example, you might be able to say to a business that has loading trucks, you're not going to have your trucks use this particular spot. But the church doesn't necessarily control all the members of the public. So I'm just pointing out that that may be an issue with respect to this particular type of condition framed in that.
So, but
manner.
you would want to have the operations restricted to their property, right?
The
That's what you-
operations they control.
Yes. And can we just state that as a proposed condition to have all the operations that they control restricted to their property? Is that okay, Mr. Ballantini?
Yes, that'd be fine.
Okay, can I ask the board for a vote on whether they would like to add that condition to the proposal?
Can we first see if there's any questions that the board has for any of the witnesses, and then also perhaps give the applicant a chance to address the condition.
Okay, I thought I had already asked every witness.
Well, I'm just getting to that before we get to a vote.
Okay. Would it be possible to unmute Mark Zimmerman? I think he's in the bullpen or waiting room. He wanted to share something.
Mr. Zimmerman should be unmuted right now.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Hello, board. Thanks for listening to me, and I appreciate your time. I think the only concern... Oh, sure.
I'm sorry. You swear the witness, Ms. Simpson?
Mr. Zimmerman, do you swear the testimony you're about to provide is the truth?
Absolutely. So I'm Mark Zimmerman. I'm the pastor of finance at Eastview, a Bloomington resident. And the one thing that I just wanted to add in here that concerns me a little bit about this stipulation, we've said without a doubt that we want to be a good neighbor. And I know from a good faith perspective that we will absolutely do that. My concern is that the stipulation is asking us to potentially relinquish our rights of easement and egress to our own property. And that carries a lot of risks for us that I don't think are absolutely necessary. And so I'm just curious how the stipulation would carry through with that process and in that weight. Obviously, it's a public alleyway, and we do have access to our property to access it, and are certainly willing to make whatever things are necessary to certainly not inhibit Mr. Ballantini's access to his property as well.
If I understand correctly, Mr. Ballantini, you didn't want no traffic there. You didn't want any traffic stopped there, right?
Well, I mean, deliveries, I understand deliveries. I understand it's a public alleyway. But what's been going on is it's been a drive-through, much like if you're going to Wendy's. And it's only on one day, and I understand that, but that one day, and it's become one day. It was more days when they first started, and it's kind of got down to a one-day process. And they could do it every day of the week, as far as I'm concerned, but just not as a drive-through. So that's the only thing I'm asking for, is they don't conduct the drive-through portion of their operations in the alleyway where they've got easily 5 or 6 doors around their structure, other than the one door that's in the alleyway in the back. That's all I'm asking for. I understand the deliveries. I understand if they bought furniture, it needs to be delivered back through the alleyway. I'm talking about the operation when they're doing food pantries or any other thing at the drive-through operation.
I think any stipulation then that we provide or that you're asking for would really need to be specific in what it's intending to limit. I think we're agreeable to that for sure. I just would want to make sure that we're not limiting, as I said, other public other access for drop-offs and things of that nature. So as long as the stipulation is clear, I would imagine as a ministry we would would certainly be agreeable to that. But I'll let Tyler jump in if he wants to add something.
Terry, I think what you said is fair. I don't think we want to be doing any type of drive-through ministry through the alleyway. I guess what I just want to clarify, when we do our delivery, like delivering the food into the food pantry, you know, are you concerned about us, as Kevin mentioned, parking the box truck there for 30 minutes so that we can unload those pallets? It doesn't sound like that's your concern. It's people parking their cars there while they're volunteering, parking their cars there for who knows what else they're doing at the church, or driving through there. And I think that's totally reasonable. I just don't want to limit our access to that public area, or, you know, we can police, especially our volunteers and our ministries very well. But it's harder. Obviously, we can't guarantee somebody might not drive down there that we can't control. But I think we're on the same page. So
I totally agree. Like I said, there's been multiple times that you've had no control. Somebody parked back there. I've had to come in and find them. Quite often in the past, it's always been somebody that works there, and you know they're, oh, well, I'm just here for a couple hours type of a situation when it's on a permanent basis. So again, it goes back to that concern when you guys get rid of that north-south alleyway and you're blocked in, you know, it's going to create more of a mess, because from the diagram that you gave us for construction on phase 2, that's all adjoined. You've got property adjoined, you've got bushes you're putting in and all that kind of stuff. And it's a workflow with your all the parking spaces up to the building. And so it's all going to be one unison property. So it would just it will make more of an alley longer, if you will. So it is exactly that, Tyler. It's imagining. I don't care about I mean, you know, your drop-offs. It's the pickups and the parking. Other than that.
So is your stipulation, Mr. Valentini, that you would add that the church act in such a manner as to assure that church activities take place on church property? Is that essentially what you're saying? Because they are not going to be able to control the access of the, you know, general public to the alley. They do have a right to use the alley, but I think that addresses your concerns, doesn't it, if they construct their operations in that manner?
Yes.
All right, and I think I heard that the applicant didn't have an issue with stipulating that church operations would take place on church property.
Would that include deliveries as well? Because that's part of the church operation.
Yeah, perhaps we could make, I don't know, if that's not a concern to Mr. Valentini, then perhaps we could define that. We're just trying to see if we can find a common ground here that's going to address the issues.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, deliveries are no problems. It's always been the parking and the pickups.
All right.
Other than deliveries.
All right, so then we'd say that there's that, you know, with the exception of deliveries that may result in a temporary use of public right-of-way, something along that line.
George, can I?
I think that would be acceptable.
Okay.
Yes.
Somebody was speaking, and then Ms. Simpson, and that is, who's that? Is that Ms.
This was Mark Zimmerman. I was just kind of jumping in, and maybe I didn't need to, just to say that I think that would be acceptable. You know, I personally lived on an double alley system in Normal over in Savannah Green for about 8 years. And there's a lot of times where living on an alley system requires people to be good neighbors and to be patient and graceful with one another. And we certainly want to do that here. So, you know, that's why it's important to have open dialogue. And I think that's why we're trying to be positive.
So other activities other than delivery should not be taking place there, right? Is that all right to say just that?
Well, I think we were speaking about church operations taking place on church property with the exception of deliveries.
Right.
Does that sound like language that's acceptable to both parties? It sounds like that is.
So can we take an aye vote on that as a condition?
Well, why not?
To
I think
add-
we have an agreement, right? Mr. Ballantini, you said that it was okay with you phrased in that way. Is that right?
Yes, Judge.
And it's okay with the board members?
And I think we heard that from the applicant's representative as well, or one of them. Pastor Hari,
Yes,
was that? Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
This is Mark Zimmerman. I didn't want to speak out for him if he was going to step. I didn't know if he was muted or not. So
No, I know it's one of the pleasures of this type of meeting where it's pretty a little more complicated than we'd like.
No, we're good.
Okay. Ms. Simpson, you were going to say something, or did?
It's irrelevant. It sounds like both parties are in agreement. So Ms. Harris, if you want a motion or a second from the board, and then a roll call vote on the condition.
I was waiting to a break in what was going on. I'm Michael Rivera, and the question or concern that I have is I can appreciate Mr. Ballantini, if I pronounced that right, vocalizing his situation. However, I don't think that it should be ignored that there are other folks that live in the alley besides him, that it should make that whatever the provisions are and the agreement is, takes the entire folks that live on that same alley into consideration, so that it's not just Mr. Ballantini's property that is being the focal point for everyone that lives in that space.
I would say that it does have to do with the the use of the applicant's property, so it would take other people's property into consideration. I think is the tone of the agreement.
George, I just wanted to add kind of a housekeeping issue. Is the public hearing still open, or do we need to declare it closed if all testimony's been provided?
Why don't we see if there is any other witness? Yeah, that's a good question. Do we have any other questions for any of the witnesses? Ms. Harris, you may want to close the hearing then, and then perhaps you could get to the board's consideration.
Okay, and then let's close the hearing and get to the board's consideration. So can we have a vote on this, the statement of facts by the board, the staff findings, with the stipulation that has been added?
Well, why don't we see? Why don't we see about a vote on the findings of fact by staff, perhaps? I don't know if people want to. Normally what we've done with these, and we're talking now simply about the special use, is we would look at the findings of fact that appear in the staff report here, which found that all 6 factors were met. And if there's a motion, we may then decide whether to proceed on them in a group. If there's an issue with that, then perhaps we would proceed on each separate finding of fact separately.
Okay. So can we go to the findings of fact then?
Unless we have a motion to accept them as written by staff.
I was going to make a motion to accept them as a group.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Noonan? And the second,
I'll second it.
Mr. Strezza. All in favor?
No, we need a roll call for that one.
Mr. Stronza? This was on the findings of fact. Mr.
Yeah.
Stronza?
Yes.
Mr. Rivera?
Yes.
Mr. Noonan?
Yes.
And Chairperson Harris?
Yes.
Okay, so the findings are accepted. When you have a vote now as to whether the
I don't.
condition,
I completely lost now. Now, the findings are accepted with the stipulation? With the
no, I was
extra
going to say perhaps you'd entertain a vote now on whether a stipulation would be, the stipulation would be something that may be added to the final vote for the special use.
I'll motion to vote on the addition of a stipulation.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Can we vote on the findings of fact with the added stipulation?
My understanding would be from the motion that this would be on the stipulation that church operations would take place solely on church property, and with the exception that there'd be some exceptions for deliveries to the property.
So I have a motion
Okay.
from Mr. Noonan, second by Mr. Straza on approving the case with one condition that church operations shall be conducted on church property with the exception of deliveries.
Thank you.
I think at this point we're just on the stipulation, and then the next one
Okay.
will be on the vote with the
Okay, stipulation.
All right.
A vote to approve this.
Well, I'll do a roll call vote then. Mr. Noonan,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Straza,
Yes.
and Chairperson Harris.
Yes.
Okay, and now finally a vote on the making a positive recommendation to the city council with the previously approved stipulation. We have a motion.
I motion.
I
Is there a
second.
second?
I second.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Noonan,
Yes.
Mr. Straza,
Yes.
and Chairperson Harris.
Yes.
The motion passed, and it's my understanding this will go on the May 26th city council meeting, or is that?
No, this will go in
Oh,
June.
that was the alley vacation.
Yes, this will go on the second meeting in June.
Okay, thank you.
You almost got us in severe trouble at the clerk's office, Mr. Mark.
I'm sorry. Don't want to do that.
Okay.
The next case, Katie, you want to introduce that?
It's Z0620. Katie, will you describe it, please?
Thank you, Ms. Harris. I think Casey is going to do the staff report for this variance.
Okay, so this is for the variance for a 12-space reduction of off-street parking, Z620. The application meets all the standards for a variance, and the staff recommendation is to allow for the variance. The amount of required parking spaces is 69 after adjustments. The petitioner is asking for a reduction in 12 spaces. It shows in phase one. Phase one creates a total of 45 parking spaces. Phase two of the development provides 9 regular parking spaces with 3 handicap spaces, and 5 bicycle spaces have been provided on the site plan. So there's a total of 57 parking spaces, a decrease in the required number of spaces by 12. Bent Elementary School, another institutional use, is located 3 blocks south, has 9 less parking spaces than the petitioner is proposing. The standards and analysis, the property, the building and use existed prior to the adoption of the ordinance. The building is landlocked by a surrounding residential district. Historically, the site was designed to serve the needs of immediate residents who could walk to church and would not need to drive and park a vehicle. Not granting the variance will encourage additional demolition of surrounding single-family homes, since additional land is not readily available. The landlocked nature of the site creates a physical hardship that makes strict adherence to the code unreasonable. The city does not want to encourage demolition of other homes in order to provide parking spaces beyond the petitioner's proposed 57 spaces. The applicant is employing the minimum parking dimensions and meeting landscaping requirements. To accommodate more off-street parking would most likely necessitate an additional variance from the landscaping requirements. Staff supports the parking reduction variance since landscaping will improve the aesthetic of the parking lot and assist with drainage and help cool the parking lot. The historic use and parking needs of the site were determined and designed to address the immediate residents who could walk to church and would not need to drive and park a vehicle. Parking regulations and increased vehicle uses have altered these requirements over time. The variance will not give special privilege to the applicant. Bent Elementary School, another institutional use, has 9 less parking spaces than the petitioner is proposing. The variance will not negatively impact the character of the neighborhood or adjacent properties. The proposed parking variance will discourage further demolition of the surrounding neighborhood, protecting the neighborhood character. The staff recommendation is to allow for the variance. And that's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions of Ms. Weeks about the staff report or comments? Hearing none, can we go?
It's George Boyle here. With regard to this, there's always a little bit of overlap between what would be the testimony and of a special use that's closely related to a variation. So I don't know if there are people from the applicant who'd like to address this briefly, or if they would like to just see if there's anybody speaking against, and then perhaps we could go to a vote. But normally we are treating these separately. So if there's any testimony in favor of the applicant that they'd like to specifically, where they'd like to specifically address this variation, this would be a time for it to be provided.
George, I've unmuted all the applicants, well, all the petitioners that we have, and if they would like to provide testimony, we can swear them in. We still have Mr. Butler, Mr. Zimmerman, and Mr. Harry are still on the call. So,
well, perhaps with they have a positive staff recommendation, and we've had a significant hearing with a certain amount of evidence. So, there may not be any need for additional evidence unless there's someone who's speaking against it. So I don't know. That's up to the applicant.
Hearing none, can we?
I'm sorry, guys. This is Tyler. The only thing I might add is, as we talk about the future vision of this property and the ministry expanding, we don't anticipate a larger footprint. So this is really what we see, what we'd like to see develop for the long-term future. We don't have a phase 3 and phase 4. And I mean, this really is kind of what we see being adequate to do the ministry and serve the community in the way we feel this facility can and should, being embedded in a neighborhood. It's very different than our normal campus out on the northeast side on 100 acres. We understand that. So from our perspective, this really is kind of the completion of the build out of the property to serve. So I don't know if Mark or Kevin would have anything else, but that's all I'll say.
I don't have anything to add.
Kevin's probably getting hungry for dinner, so he's not going to speak up.
I thought about it, but then it seems to be going well, so I'm going to be quiet.
Yeah.
Okay, can we have an approval of the staff report?
How about it? Can we see if there's anybody who'd be speaking against, just so we have a record?
No one registered to speak against this item.
You said no one?
Correct. We did not receive any.
All right. Ms. Harris, do you want to close the public hearing then, and then we can proceed to deliberation?
Okay, let's close the public hearing and proceed with deliberation of the staff report and findings of fact. Proceed to findings of fact. We approve the staff report and go to the findings of fact now.
Well, we have the alternative of going through each finding of fact separately or entertaining a motion to accept the findings of fact as written.
Does anyone like to propose that we accept the findings of fact in total?
I'll motion to accept the findings of fact in total.
Is there a second?
Second.
Then can we go to the vote?
Do you want a voice vote or you want?
It's gonna have to roll call.
Okay, Mr. Strasser,
Yes.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Noonan,
Yes.
and Ms. Harris.
Yes.
Okay, there's the findings of fact. Now we need one on the variation itself.
So I'll need a motion with or without
Right.
conditions, and and then we'll take a vote on that.
I have a motion to accept the variance.
Seconded.
Mr. Rivera,
Yes.
Mr. Strasser,
Yes.
Mr. Noonan,
Yes.
and Chairperson Harris.
Yes. It looks like the motion's passed, and so we close the case of 2620, and we can move on. Is there any other business? Any new business? Okay, at 5:29, I have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Meeting adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.